to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ETNA's special daily initiative where MSMEs and entrepreneurs are able to get each and every one of their questions answered. Today, a very special and exclusive conversation with Gopal Krishna Aggarwal. He's the National Spokesperson on Economic Affairs for the BJP as well as a member of the Task Force on MSMEs. He joins us in our studio to address top-of-mind questions that our viewers have. Mr. Agarwal, thank you so much for coming down tonight and talking to our MSMEs. For them to hear straight directly from the horse's mouth is always very encouraging. Let's kick this off by talking about GST. First and foremost, there's of course been a lot of commentary on GST for the economy as a whole. Let's start there, given of course your role as the National Spokesperson in Economic Affairs for the BJP.
GST is a far-reaching changes. It's a structural reform that will change the way business is being done in India. There has been tremendous discussion. It will create an ease of doing business, and the biggest beneficiary of GST, I think, is the small and medium and micro sector, because it is bringing them at par with the large organizations with regard to input tax credit. So many concepts are there in the GST which will benefit the each and every small organization. It will create a national one market. It will create the, it has subsumed almost 13 to 14 taxes. The MSME at present, small businesses, everybody had to go for different registration within different authorities. They had to deal with different inspector licenses. All these are being done away under the, all this have been done away under the GST, and it is all technological driven.
Yeah.
Unless we have a strong technological driven system where compliances, where returns, assessment, refund, etc. are not online, and an integrated business transaction module is implemented, the whole system will not be very efficient, transparent, there will be harassment. So, all these now will go away once the full GST impact is implemented and people start using the true benefit of technology.
Fair enough. So, in the long run, GST of course is a big game changer. It's of course definitely positive for the economy. In the short run, of course, there's been a lot of criticism, which I'm sure you're aware of, in terms of how, one, it was implemented, and two, specifically for MSMEs. There could be pain points on the behalf of the MSMEs who don't have the information, and there could be also some taxes which the government has been working on changes, for instance, for the traditional handicrafts industry. So let's talk about the lack of information which MSMEs are saying. We meet with a lot of MSMEs when we travel across the country.
Yes.
Most of them tell us that there has been the fear that there could be an increase in prices for them, whether it's input cost or the final cost which they're not able to pass on to their consumers. How do you like to address that?
No, because there are 2-3 basic concepts under GST which have to be understood very clearly by every organization, every business establishment is that there has to be a value addition at each stages, and there is taxes at each stage. But if you create an audit trail of your transactions and then you record the transactions, you will automatically get the input tax credit. Whatever input you have bought for any item for value addition, you have paid tax on that. If you record that into your transaction under the GST network portal, and then you sell with the value addition and charge GST to the final user, ultimately that supply chain will be established, and you will automatically the input tax credit which you have paid to the supplier with regard to any taxes will be credited to your account. You don't have to worry into that system. Only worry you have to do is that you properly have a proper registration under GST network. Whenever you buy anything for any input or any raw material or anything or machinery or anything, you give your proper GST number to that supplier and see that he records that into that transactions proper number, and automatically if he puts that transactions, you also have to put that see at the month end that the transaction has been put on the system, and the credit will come to you.
How many GSTNs and how many Suvidha Kendras are set up in each state as we speak?
That number I don't have, but ultimately all the department, at least at present there are about 13 or 14 departments which were working under various indirect tax regime. All those departments have come to the GST group or GST network work, and their work load has come down significantly, because now under GST everything is online. Once they are registered, everything, transactions are put into computer, there is no assessment, or that work is very little at the state level. So those all departments, their officers etc. are being regularly trained by the government to help into GST Suvidha Kendras. In addition to that, government is also talking of developing this GST professionals who can help into remote areas and implement this GST.
Okay. It's said there are two things certain in life, taxes and death. I think for small businesses, we can say it's taxes and funding. We've spoken taxes, I want to talk funding. 99% of an entrepreneur's pain point at this point in time, at least from what our viewers tell us, is that they're unable to access funds no matter what industry they're in. Let me start with the big picture as always and talk about what is really happening, because you, given your association of course with MSMEs, given the fact that you're on the task force for MSMEs, what is your view on how funding for MSMEs has perhaps changed? We've come off those 10-year NPAs for the banking industry. Have things started looking better?
Yeah, the focus of the government is on MSME, and the biggest problem to MSME, I understand, and the government also is well aware of this problem, is that the credit availability, because they generally are a small organization, they don't have collaterals, and at the same time the banks etc., large financial institutions are reluctant to lend because of security constraints. So government is trying to build up on the credit guarantee scheme, the way which will give a seed capital through NABARD and then through SIDBI. Government is trying to capitalize on that front, so that this MSME small businesses get loan without collateral. One thing, they also get seed capital. And another very important factor that the government has taken an initiative is, I think if this organization should take use, is that government has set up an exchange on receivables. And that is the biggest block of funds which MSME etc. have, is when they supply, there is a time lag of 3 months to 4 months of the getting their payment on their sale supplies. So there they can go to register themselves on these exchanges platforms and technological platforms which are governed by RBI and exchanges, where they will be discounted, and bank financing also can come to, is also coming on those. There was some problem I should mention, that is now government has tried to sort it out, that problem also with regard to capitalization of banks, PSUs and other banks. What happened was, there was lot of accumulated NPAs on these bank account, and because of that NPAs and their provisioning, compulsory provision in the balance sheet of the public sector banks, their capital was, for lending capital was occupied to a large extent, and they could not lend to tier 3, tier 4 loans, which involved, which blocked a larger capital.
So you're saying that the recapitalization of banks has had a direct impact on small businesses?
Definitely. This is one of the important area by government has come out with this identification of NPA, provisioning, bank balance sheet are now better, strong, strengthened. They have liquidity after demonetization, they have money to lend, but their capital was blocked because of provisioning. Now with capitalization bond by the Ministry of Finance to the tune of 2,11,000 crore bond issue, which will release the capital blocked of the PSU to lend now to this securities which are unsecured loans also they can give. So now they will be able to lend more, and with the banks having lot of funds, they have liquidity, they need more sectors to lend, and this large capital, there is a very slow capital formation in large industries. Ultimately, if you see over the last 5-6 years, the growth has come into the small businesses only.
All right, do hold that thought. We'll take a very quick break on this special conversation. Much more on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight an exclusive conversation with the National Spokesperson in Economic Affairs BJP. He's also a member of the task force on MSMEs, joining us exclusively in studio to answer all the questions that our viewers have sent us. I quickly want to go back to the fact that in theory, yes, the government has said that up to 2 crores is guaranteed collateral free. You have SIDBI, of course, which looks specifically at lending to small businesses, you know, the Mudra scheme, etc. But what is happening on the ground is very different from what the government is trying to push. How will that gap be fixed? Because most businesses tell us that if you are, you know, in the bracket of say 4 crores to 400 crores, which is the size that we typically look at here at ET now for small businesses, up to 1 crore is collateral free, but anything beyond that becomes very difficult for them to raise. How is that gap going to be fixed?
No, that gap is technically has to be filled through either through SIDBI or their capital guarantee schemes.
But it is not getting fixed.
Yes, there is some problem. We have also heard from many organizations that actually physically government may announce, but finally it is through the banking sector which is reluctant to lend. One thing I told that once their government has capitalized them, their capital will be released so that they are free now to lend. They were under restriction from the RBI not to lend to unsecured areas because of this capital adequacy norms. So that has been tackled. Another important thing is that particularly government is also asking directors, government nominee directors to push this, because the MSME sector or agriculture sector, they come under priority sector and there are specific targets given to the banks to lend for a particular amount. They are being monitored at the DFS, Department of Financial Services is monitoring every bank to what is their lending, how much they have lent to the priority sector. Even bank boards are taking up those reports. So there is a strong focus and it will definitely show results in this area. Ultimately, these banks etc. are given loan to these areas, and more and more training is also required. So they have to, skill development is also required. They need some information dissemination is lacking to many of the MSAs. What I have found are that there are many schemes of the government, but the information, level of information dissemination to the last mile user is very,
so what is that
disconnect is there.
One sort of platform through our show that you want to advise our viewers that if you want any information, say on funding, this is where you go. SIDBI, of course, but how will that gap get fixed?
Government and the Ministry of MSME has launched one portal, My MSME Loan Portal. That you should go to that My MSME portal, and then there it will be a complete hand-holding for your loan requirement, etc. The targets are with the branches also have been given. Some individual bank branches in remote areas have been given a target to give startup, stand up. Those issues are there. Mudra bank loans are there, and but this MSME, My MSME portal will help them into this information, and ultimately, if they get registered, and they are then there are so many subsidy schemes also available with regard from the government with regard to export, with regard to various other benefits. Those subsidies etc. are also to be used with regard to environmental clearances, environmental issues. So all these subsidy schemes, they have to understand.
So your advice then is that there are the schemes, there is the information, there also has to be a little proactiveness on the part of MSMEs, point taken. But you were talking about the receivables exchange, very important point, because we hear very often from the MSMEs that well, the government has set up the mechanism for a small business that's working with a large business, approaching the receivables exchange, trying to take legal recourse against a large business, against a customer who hasn't paid you in 3, 4, 5 months. then ensures that you're losing out on that customer, because you have other businesses that will want to wait it out and not go through this course. What happens then?
No, I think I have told you 2-3 initiatives.
Yeah.
One was My MSME
Yeah.
is one portal. Then
No,
this
just ensuring
exchange.
that your customers are paying on
Yes,
time, because
there
small
are
business
2-3
yeah,
initiatives
that's your
that
biggest
they should
challenge.
understand is
Yeah.
under the PSU. One thing is government has put up a strong conditions that 20% of the procurement, even from the large corporate houses,
Yeah.
they have to get procurement 20% from MSME. They have to disclose it in their balance sheet, how much they have procured from small businesses. Second thing is in the balance sheet, they have to put up a proper disclosure that how much loan is how much payable amount is pending in the from the corporate houses to small
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
And I think whichever company is not paying to the small businesses, they should see their balance sheet, etc., whether there has been a proper disclosure of that issue, because if they disclose it that they have not paid, they cannot do it. And that means they are somewhere not disclosing it, that they are holding up the payment. So if that issue is brought to the notice of the various regulatory authorities, it's a simple thing. Any chartered accountant, etc., they are required to certify that all payments to MSME, there is no pending payment.
Outstanding has to be
yes,
mentioned in the balance
clearly
sheet.
mentioned.
Sure.
So they should see that those companies which are not paying, there has to be a proper disclosure, and once they disclose, they will be getting caught into this thing. So these are strong initiatives that in itself will help into this payment. And now this IBC has also come, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Under that also, now MSMEs are strongly empowered that they can take up a liquidation proceeding amongst any big organization if they have not paid, and that is to the amount is even 1,000. For a small amount of 1,000, you can take up a liquidation proceeding of a through IBC of large organization. So no large organization will take this risk of going through and putting the payment into a jeopardy for the exchanges. But and with regard to exchange receivable, that I was telling, that you have seen how many NSDL, how NSC has been a big revolution. And the depository accounts, we have more than 4 crore depository accounts, small investor investing only 5,000 to 20,000. Once they have adopted that technological driven exchange platform and depository driven exchange shared delivery systems, now it has spread to reach remote corners. So we consider this MSMEs to be more conversant with the technology than a small investor. So once they go to this platform, they are very well transparent system, they are very well established, and
fair enough. Okay, I'm wrapping up this conversation, Mr. Aggarwal. Let's first talk about, we're coming up on the budget. What can we expect for small businesses?
Oh, small businesses, one thing is GST, with some problems under the GST were there in this winter session is also coming in this coming sessions in the parliament. One thing is that government wanted to increase the exemption limit of turnover from 1.5 crore to 2 crores for small businesses under GST, that they don't have to get themselves registered under GST. That needs a constitutional amendment that has to be passed through the parliament. One thing is we expect in this session or coming sessions that will be passed. Another thing is that the government wants to do more with regard to further financing NABARD, give more amount to the NABARD and SIDBI, so that they have more funds with regard to this implementation, this giving of the loan. That's important two things. And I think with regard to other thing is government is on a process that there has been a thought that should there be a regulatory authority on a MSME, so that they can give their complaints, they can give various problems which etc. can be tackled with regard to the way SEBI is doing for the capital market. There can be a setting up of a regulatory authority which can look into their problems. Ultimately, information dissemination is very important. There are several schemes which are available for the benefits of the small businesses, but that information is not going to the last mile. These kind of programs like this, it's a good initiative, very important initiative, which will help the MSME. This is a very important sector, and nobody can deny the importance of MSME for the growth of the economy. They generate lot of employment. I have some figures that MSMEs are contributing to the 50% of the GDP of the manufacturing sector.
Absolutely.
If the manufacturing sector is contributing 15% to GDP, more than 8% is being contributed by MSME, and they are employing 90% of the workforce employed in the manufacturing.
So where do you see where do you see that 50% then going to?
This is where that is the large manufacturing sectors that is being contributed by the large manufacturing sector, but there is a strong potential for generation of employment in the under MSME sector, and internationally, even if USA and other thing, if you go to those nations, there has been growth has come from the MSME. So India has at present little focus, the focus which was desired on this sector has been not that forthcoming.
Sure.
And more now the government is understanding that this is a sector which can create growth to the economy, create employment to the economy. Their problem has to be tackled.
Okay. Mr. Aggarwal, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. That wraps up this special conversation. If you have any more questions for Gopal Krishna Aggarwal, he's promised to answer them for you. So do remember, you can send those questions in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me personally. Sunanda_J is my Twitter handle. LOT_ET now is our official Twitter handle. You can also leave your questions on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, or call us on that number you see on your screen. We love hearing from you, and do trust that this has been a good interview, so we'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.